Do you find yourself worried about your gold being confiscated? I get that question all the time from you. We're going to talk about that in this video, but nobody ever wants to talk about silver being confiscated. We're going to address that subject as well, and maybe why you might need to be a little more concerned about your silver. But what about your precious metals disappearing? Before we talk about silver and gold here in the United States, we're going to talk about a story out of China where people who thought they had their gold safely stored in a custodial type arrangement found out that they were wrong. Police detain controller of China National Gold Jewelry's franchise over illegal custodian services. Well, I learned about this initially from this YouTube video down here on the right side. 400 million gold vanishes. Society panics. Shops flee. So apparently, as gold prices surged, the disappearance of several affiliated stores under the China National Gold Group Corporation, also known as China Gold, and Shandong Gold Group in Beijing have led to a staggering loss of 400 million yuan, which is about 55 million US dollars, worth of gold for customers, sparking widespread shock and panic across various sectors. Victims left with no recourse, total 50 or more. So essentially, guys, I dug into this story, and what happened was some of the franchises of this big China Gold Corp had illegally begun to offer custodial services, telling their customers, hey, don't store your gold at home, store it here at the store. And there were two reasons why people agreed to this. Number one, the store was offering them a little bit of interest, a little bit of way that they could make some additional income off storing their gold at the store. And secondly, people were concerned about storing their gold at home, which is legitimate. Unfortunately, these renegade franchises apparently made off with the gold, leaving $55 million worth of gold holdings that people thought they had essentially disappear at this point. So look, always be careful when you're storing precious metals off site. I feel comfortable with where I store mine. There are some excellent vaults out there, excellent options that you can trust, but just make sure whatever you do, you feel 100% comfortable with. Again, these were renegade franchises from China Gold. We don't want to overemphasize or dramatize too much what went on, but unfortunately, looks like 50 people in China who thought they had a significant amount of gold, 55 million US dollars worth of gold. Look, I'll prove it to you. We did the math. Here you go, right? 400 million Chinese yuan equals 55 million US dollars. Boy, that's almost $1 million US dollars per holder. But let's shift gears back to gold confiscation. I think the only thing worse than having your gold disappear would be having it confiscated. And I get this question all the time about the 1933 gold confiscation. Will it happen again? And we're going to talk about silver as well, which you might be interested or surprised to hear my thoughts on silver confiscation versus gold confiscation. I don't think gold will be confiscated in modern times. The big difference being that back in 1933, the US dollar was backed by gold. So in order for Roosevelt to essentially print more money, which is what he needed to do to help stimulate the US economy and get it through the Great Depression, they had to confiscate everyone's gold. And you probably know the story. They confiscated the gold, and then they immediately thereafter revalued it that much higher. So they had more gold, but then they were able to basically dilute the value of the dollar against the gold they held, which allowed some of these Depression era work programs to come into fruition. The big difference again today is they don't need gold to print money. As we've witnessed since 1971, when Richard Nixon took the United States off the gold standard. They can print money at their will, both paper and electronic. So I don't think we have to worry much about gold confiscation in this country right now. It was interesting back then, though. If you didn't turn your gold in, you could face a $10,000 fine, which was a huge amount of money back then, because, of course, the dollar has gone down in value significantly over the almost last 100 years. Or you could be put in jail for 10 years. Now, there were all types of loopholes that people worked in terms of collectibles and jewelry, and a lot of people hid their gold. Some people apparently shipped it off to Canada. But nonetheless, there were big punishments for people who would get caught not turning their gold in. And gold was illegal to own until 1974 here in the United States. Again, right? Because of the situation we're in right now in this country, we aren't realistically facing the prospect of going back onto the gold standard, which would then necessitate the government needing to confiscate everyone's gold. One big reason, and this is something that really needs to be considered when we look at this, is the United States has such a huge trade deficit that if we would go back on the gold standard, we'd see a real similar situation like unfolded in the late 60s into 1971, where countries would be, what do you think the countries would be doing with all these dollars that we would have to be giving them to satisfy the trade deficit? Yeah, they'd be showing up just like de Gaulle did in 1970. France came to the United States and said, we want to convert all of our dollars into gold. That was one of the big reasons why Nixon took us off the gold standard. Now, what about silver? Nobody ever talks about silver confiscation. I don't see silver being confiscated either for monetary purposes, but nobody talks about the prospect of silver potentially. And I'm not saying I believe this will happen, but I think there's more of a chance that silver could be confiscated at some point in the future than gold, because silver has such a critical metal component to it for electronics, for the defense industry. I don't think it's likely that either gold or silver will be confiscated, but I do believe that there's actually more of a risk that silver could be confiscated. Hey, I want to say thank you to our channel sponsor, Pimbex. If you're looking to buy silver, gold, or platinum online, do yourself a favor and check out Pimbex. You will get more metal for your money with a company that you can trust. I'll never tell you what to do, but I would highly recommend that you throw them in the mix next time you're shopping online for precious metals. And of course, let's say thank you to First Mining Gold. You can learn more about them at firstmininggold.com. And Fortuna Silver, you can learn more about them at fortunasilver.com. Hey, what would be worse than having your gold confiscated? Disappearing, right? Our hearts go out to these Chinese people who thought they had their gold stored safely with China Gold Corp. That's, as far as we know, like the big nationally owned gold company in China. Again, these were some renegade franchisees that apparently absconded with some Chinese citizens' gold. The lesson there is for all of us, whether you store your metals at home, whether you store your metals at an offsite location, some type of custodian, make sure you're 100% comfortable with the arrangement that you choose. And we aren't going to see gold confiscation here in the United States, but us silver stackers probably want to stay alert, especially as we move into these coming decades, that as silver becomes more and more critical to industry, that it may create an environment, who knows what could happen in regards to governments wanting to get their hands on silver to satisfy the demands of industry. Again, I'm not trying to create any type of panic regarding silver or gold confiscation. I think they both have very, very, very minimal levels of probability, but it's a subject that comes up so often. I wanted to address it with you. Hey, thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of Ron's Basement. There's no Ron's Basement without you and your participation. Please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. And know one thing for sure, I'll be looking forward to seeing you next time.